Hey guys, it's Will Dixon. I'm a mentor for Technomancers, Team 1758 for First Robotics. I'm here with...
Zachary Zhao, what's up guys? I'm a senior programming captain for the team, and I'm here to help out until I sadly leave the team. RIP.
Yeah, well, at least he's sticking out. Season's over, but he's still helping out for future teams. Freshmen for next year will hopefully be able to see these videos, right? So, today we're going to be covering a useful tool that we've already covered in a previous video, but we're going to expand on it a little more and actually cover the part of it that we actually use. So it's Git, which is a version control software as mentioned before. But I covered back there, like, the concept and commits and the nitty-gritty detail stuff. I guess it wouldn't have been basics, but for me, understanding that made it easier for me to use Git, so I kind of wanted to cover that. Today we're actually going to be covering GitHub. It's a hub for Git. It is a centralized database for all of your code. So, I think we're going to get into that. I'm going to let Zach take it from here.
Alright, so the first thing that has to happen with GitHub is that knowledge that GitHub is this online place where people can make these project repositories, and repositories are kind of like project folders where a bunch of work geared towards one like project idea is placed and located. So when we're working on robotics code, we typically make a GitHub repo for the season. So this year we actually had a 2017 Steamworks repository, which Will is currently in right now. And that's where we actually push all of our code and all of the things we're working on so that the different programmers who are working throughout the build season and, you know, outside of the season can actually see what changes other people have made and make it so that the actual progress of the project is less redundant, so that we don't have, say, 2 or 3 people working on doing the same thing. So the basic steps for starting a project repo on GitHub. First, obviously, you have to make the repo. So, Will, could you actually walk us through how to first create a repo on GitHub?
Sure. So I'm going to cover 2 things first. GitHub has an idea of a user and an organization. So I am signed in as my user, and if I go to GitHub, just GitHub itself, you can see all of my personal repositories that are tied to me. If you were starting off for a team for First Robotics, I would consider actually making an organization. Creating an organization is simple if I could figure out where you could do it. Right here. So you click on that drop down that has your name and create organization. We created one for our team, Technomancers. And this is where we host our code for Technomancers. So this allows Zach, who is another user of GitHub, to have his own repositories, but then we have a centralized location for our team's code, so it doesn't have to stick with me, because I would like to be a mentor for a long time, but sooner or later I might not be able to be there, and I want somebody else to be able to use the code. So we do have a centralized location for it. So for this tutorial, I'm actually going to put it on the Technomancers Git repository stuff. Anyways, you see this green little button called New Repository? I wonder what that does. Yep, so we're going to create a repository. When creating it, it'll ask who the owner is, and of course I can choose myself, but I do want Technomancers to own it, so that Zach can also get it without having permissions, and he can push and pull, and there's a whole permission tree behind it, and it is amazing. But for right now, we're just going to cover the very basics of this. So I'm actually going to say we're going to name it Fluffy Doodle.
Oh, yes.
Because it said, great names are short and memorable, need inspiration, how about Fluffy Doodle? Great. I suck at coming up with names anyways. So, you can give it a short description. I'm going to say, covering GitHub basics. And, no, I'm not going to do that yet. Oh, yes, I am. Yeah, we're going to do that. And a .git ignore is a little bit more complex than this video is worth. And a license, my personal opinion, you can add a license to your project. I like using GNU General Public License version 3. Little shameless plug here, but with that, it means your code is open source. People can use it for free. But if they make modifications to that code, they have to give you back that source so that you can use it as well. So I kind of like that one because it goes with the open source community. I give you code. If you make that code better, please give it back so that I can also benefit from it as well. So that's kind of why I like, I think Linus Trivaldo, the guy that actually made Git and Linux, or Trivaldo, I don't remember how to, Linus Trivaldo, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Guy that made Linux and Git. This is the license that he prefers as well. I think he actually prefers version 2 over version 3 because of certain reasons. But for me, version 3 is fine. But for this project, we're not going to cover one. Sorry for that long and obligated. Go with a public one, as public is, of course, open source and everyone can see it. And you don't require certain permissions for it, and it's free. If you create private ones, you have to start paying for it. With Technomancers, since we are an organization, an educational organization, they allowed us to get a some private repos. So definitely try and look into that. So anyways, we're going to create that repository. And there's a README. So that's creating a repository, Zach. I know that was long and convoluted.
Yeah, no problem. So, okay, after you create the repository, like how Will just demonstrated, obviously the next thing would probably be, how can I start pushing work up to this repository? So actually, Will, if you would be so kind, there are a few different ways to actually edit the files or create new files in a GitHub project repo. So you can actually do it from the website inside like the repo on GitHub, like Will is showing right now. You can create a new file, upload some files from your computer, or you can actually, even if you click on a file, like if Will would be so kind as to click on the README, you can edit the files there too. Another way to do it though is that you can actually pull the repository down to your computer and then make changes there locally on your computer, and then push them back up like we covered in the previous Git video. Push up the changes that you made up to the online repository. So Will's kind of circling around it right now, but if you wanted to pull the repository down to your computer or device, you would have to do this thing called cloning or downloading. Will and I especially like, well, I like to use cloning because downloading kind of don't really
downloading
feel like
doesn't actually copy the repository, it just copies down the current version of the code.
See, okay, I wish I could have said it that way, but thanks.
Yeah.
So we clone it. So Will, if you could just quick walk us through how to clone down a repository.
Alright, so with GitHub, you have to have permissions and stuff. We may cover permissions in another video as it becomes a little bit more complex when we have to cover permissions. But there's two different ways we can clone down the repository. We can clone it down using HTTPS, which uses your normal credentials, and you might actually use that instead because you just have to log in that way. So if you actually copy this and do the next step that I will show you after it, it's going to pop up something and say, hey, please log into Git to make sure you have correct rights, and then it will clone it down. But I set mine up in such a way that I don't need a password. I say that. I have it a different way. I'm using public-private key pairs over SSH, a little bit more complex. Just know it's still just checking to make sure I am me, but I'm letting the computer do the work, whereas if you do HTTPS, you have to do the work. So anyways, you're going to copy this to clipboard. Notice that both of them have it. I'm going to copy to clipboard. And then I'm going to come over to a terminal. And I'm going to navigate to somewhere that I want this code to exist. So for example, I'm in my home directory. I have a Git folder in my home directory. And then I have a Technomancers YT for YouTube directory. You'll see there's a few other things. So Java Basic, JavaScript Basics. The code that I was actually covering in the previous videos are here. I haven't uploaded them to Git though, but that's just a nice place for me to put everything. But I'm going to do a Git clone, because that's actually what I'm doing, is I'm actually cloning down the repository. And then I'm going to paste in that value, right? Which is wow, why is it still highlighted? Please unhighlight. Oh well. Anyways,
Uh-oh.
it is. There we are. Unhighlighted. Anyways, so we have git at github.com, Technomancers, fluffydoodle.git. Notice that this right here matches pretty much, well, you can't read it, but what's inside of the URL of GitHub. Except for there's a colon here because of SSH, but if you go to HTTPS, that is the link. That is what's inside of the URL. So it matches perfectly. So it's a great tool. So if you know where it is on the web, you know how to clone it down. So anyways, I'm going to push enter, and this is the authentication part that I was talking about. Since I'm using a different way, you're not going to have this specific window. But if you're using HTTPS, it would probably open up a web browser. If you set up your keys differently, you can set up your keys to not include a password. But I am Fort Knox over here, and I usually protect everything, so...
You have things to hide?
Yeah, I mean, my whole hard drive's encrypted, too.
Well,
yep.
alright.
So anyways, Git's great and phenomenal with giving you input on what happened. So, we have cloning into Fluffy Doodle. So, what just happened is it created a folder for me. You notice how before I didn't have it. Now I do, called Fluffy Doodle. The next part is just saying how many objects, blah, 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 blah. It's pulling down everything that I need. And you'll also notice up in Visual Studio Code, I have it opened up inside of this directory as well, that I have Fluffy Doodle, right? And look, there's that README file. That README file is the same that's right here, right? That Fluffy Doodle covering GitHub basics, that's what this is right here. So I have cloned it down, I have a copy of what's online, which is perfect. Now I can start doing whatever I need to, right, Zach?
Mm-hmm. And I actually, during that explanation, I also cloned it down using HTTPS. And basically, now that I have a copy of the repository and Will has a copy of the repository, we can actually work on it technically at the same time, and then we can push up our work. So actually, the key thing to note here is that if someone else pushes up work into the repo, then in order for you as a user to maintain the most up-to-date version, typically you would use this thing called git fetch or git pull. So just to show that off, I'm going to quick write a small file and then push that up to the repo. So I'm going to name this hello.txt.
Alright, before you push up, do you want me to show them how a commit and push work? So that they know what you're doing?
Go ahead, while I'm just quick doing this.
Alright, so let's go how to develop in this cycle, right? So Fluffy Doodle, for me, I like to have a space there. Doesn't really matter. But also, I like having capitalized titles with no dashes. So I'm going to do Fluffy Doodle. And then I'm going to rename this to the fluffiest doodle of them all, right? Now, of course, you would actually do code changes, right? So you might have installation steps, right? And then you'd go through download this, right? And then 2, run this. And then 3, which is voila. I'm pretty sure I spelled that wrong, but voila, you're done. So anyways, so I edit this file, right? And if I do a git status, which shows me the status of my current git repository, notice I did navigate into Fluffy Doodle, by the way. So I'm going to do a git status inside this repository, and you'll notice, hey, I modified the README. And then it even tells me a few things. Changes not staged for commit. Use git add to update what will be committed. Use git checkout, whatever the file is, to discard changes in the working directory. Well, I actually do want to commit this change, so I'm going to do this git add, right? Git add, and then I'm going to do readme.md. I'm going to push enter. Now if I do git status again, oh, now it's green instead of red. And notice, hey, changes to be committed. Okay, well, I'm ready. But there's this git reset head if I want to unstage it. Well, I don't want to unstage it, so what do you do next? This is where you actually make the commit. So if I do git commit, it's going to pop up a vim terminal, VIM, And this terminal is a little different. It's a text editor still, but it's a terminal text editor, making it slightly more difficult. If you get in this terminal, push I, and you'll notice in the bottom left right here, you'll see how I'm in insert mode. So now I can give it a commit message. What did I do in this commit? I changed description in the README. It's a good idea to always be as descriptive as possible in that first line, but not change README, right? Because, okay, I noticed you changed README, but what did you change about it? Well, I changed the description. So to get out of insert mode, you push escape, and you notice it went away in the bottom left, and then you hit colon. In the bottom left you see the colon, and then WQ, right? The W stands for write, and the Q stands for quit. And when I do that, Git noticed, hey, he wants this to be the commit message, and says change description in the README, right? This is what this is. Now if I'd run git status, your branch is ahead of origin master by 1 commit. That ahead of origin master means that, hey, your local changes are different than the changes that are up there. So I need you, if you want everyone else to see it, you need to push it up. So I'm going to run git push, and there we are, right? So how do I know it actually went up there? If I refresh the repository, oh look, I refreshed the page over here, and GitHub knows about my change. Fluffy doodle, the fluffiest doodle of them all. And then the installation steps, download this, run this, and voila. So that's what Zach's doing in the background that he was saying earlier.
Right.
Alright.
So actually, just real fast.
Okay.
As Will was saying, yeah, I am basically doing the exact same thing. Will did a really good job of actually showing with git status all these different things, like step by step, what you can see and what to look for. So right now, I actually created an example file called hello.txt. And right now, I'm going to push up my changes to the online repository as well. I just have to authorize it, and my computer's being slow.
Lovely, right?
But oh wow, actually, I forgot to do something, and good on Git to actually catch this. So, as I was saying before, how if I try to push something up, well, if there's more than one person working on a GitHub project, then you typically want to pull down all the changes that other people might have made, just in case, you want to have the most up-to-date repository and all the work. So actually, I forgot to, well, I'm going to say I did this on purpose, and I didn't pull it down yet because, hey, I wanted to see what happened. And the computer was like, hey, hold on, you messed up. You didn't have the most up-to-date version of what's online. So you should pull that down first so that when you push up your own work, you will actually be correct. So how that is basically happening is that if I'm pushing up my work, it's basically what is different on my computer will kind of replace or update what is different on the online repo. So now that I've pulled it down, I'm going to now push it up, and crossing fingers, and it should push up just fine. And yep, it's pushed up, and now and now, Will, you can see my question to you and to maybe anyone else.
There, notice I refreshed the page and I see the hello text, and that's his little avatar, which is a cute little avatar. Anyways, so you'll notice his commit message is merge master, blah 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 blah. That was his git pull. What the git pull does is it sees what's out there, and it will merge in those changes into your changes. And so when he does a push, it shows that as well. So that's a little bit what's going on in the background there. But that's a little too much for this video. I think last video actually covered what a merge was. But anyways, his hello text. Hello, workers of Fluffy Doodle. How are you today? So I wanna respond to this text message, or not text message, just text document, or I think he made a typo or something. I don't know. Anyways, but you'll notice I don't have it locally either. I don't have it local yet. This is what Zach was talking about, right? Let me actually cover what he had before. Let's say I forgot to add something to the README. I'm not going to do anything by pulling down the repo yet because I want to show you that error message that Zach actually had. Anyways, so I forgot to add something, a to-do list, because there's always something to do in programming. Always, right? Do something. Anyways, I'm going to save that, right? I'm going to do a get status. I have aliases. Ignore that. Get status. You'll notice I have a modified file. I'll do git add readme md. If I do a get status again, there it is. If I do a get commits, there's also a shortcut. So if you don't want to have to open up Vim, you can do a shortcut with -m like this and open and closing your quotation marks. And that M stands for the message, and that's going to put that inside the file, so you don't have to open up Vim and kind of convolute, does everything. So I'm going to say added to-do list, right? There it goes. So this actually, if I do a git log, you'll see this is what's up there right now. This is what I'm currently on. This was my last commit, and the title, initial commit, change description in the README, added to-do list, all that fun stuff. You hit Q to get out of that window, by the way. And then I'm going to do a git push, because I'm ready to push up my changes. But you'll notice, oh, it was rejected. Why was it rejected? Failed to push some references, right? It failed to push to this. Updates were rejected because remote contains work that you do not have locally. This is to make sure that my changes will not affect what's already up there. So I need to pull down the latest, so I'm going to do a git pull. This is that new command that I want to talk about. I'm pulling down those changes from the remote repository. There we are. And it asks for a commit message, because what's, again, as I said, a pull does, is it takes what's up there and merges it with your current changes. It does smart decisions on what has changed, what hasn't changed, and merges them together. And it sticks you inside of a Vim terminal. So escape to escape any mode that you're in, :WQ, right, quit, and enter. And there we are. So the git pull, from this master, I'm merging origin master into master, merged by recursive strategy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You'll notice that there was a hello text that was added. It gives you some nice information. But also, if you look up at the top left, I now have my hello text right there. So how are you today?
Yay.
I am doing fine. Zaxby's.
There you go. Yes. My true personality. Not sponsored by Zaxby's. Nope, don't sue us, please.
Oh, that's true. There we are. Sorry. There we are.
You spelled my name wrong, Will.
Does it actually have a K? I thought it was just C.
It's an H. Will, you've known me for like a year, man. Come on.
Facepalm. Anyways, so I'm doing fine. And it keeps going. So I pulled down his changes, made a change to it, and you'll notice git status is still there. And so I'll do a git add on hello text. And then I'll do a git commit. Replied to Zach. Noticed how I still, and I'm using -m for the message, so I don't have to open up Vim. Enter that, and I'll do a git push. There we are. So I pulled down his changes, or I first pushed up a change to the README, but when I tried to push it that time, it wouldn't work, so I had to do a git pull. And I noticed he made a change to that as well. So I merged in those changes, I changed that file and pushed up, and so now if I go to Fluffy Doodle, you'll notice the README is updated with the new to-do, with that little checkbox. I love the checkboxes. But also the hello.txt has the new code as well. But again, this is a text file. GitHub can do more than that. This is Java, Golang, and stuff like that. And it's actually really smart about it. So if I go to a different repository just real quick, if you don't mind, Zach.
Yeah, no problem.
You'll notice this orange bar. If I click on it, it tells you that this program was written in 100% Java. It is a Java application is what it is. It will show you percentages too. So if you have a Golang application, it'll say it was built in Go and then this. So it works out really well. But I think that's it for today. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, maybe just like a quick end note is that, as you can see with what Will and I were doing, it can get pretty convoluted with working with Git repositories, especially with a lot of people on them. So as far as like version controlling works, I believe we'll actually touch on that in the last Git video. And also you can use permissions to control who can push what to when, and that sort of thing. But overall, no matter how chaotic it might seem, the basics of it are still there, with just always making additions, pulling down just before you pull, just in case, and then pushing up your changes just to see, so that other people can see what you did for the repo. And yeah, I think that's about it for today.
Alright. And Git tries to hold your hand along the way. So if you try to do something stupid, it's going to be like, no, don't do this. Try this instead. Or you noticed it will try and help you. So don't be scared of it. Go into it and try it out and see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, leave a comment below and see how we can help out. Maybe ask a couple questions. But this has worked out a lot for us. Maybe in another video we'll cover branches and how branches work. But that gets into a very, very complex scheme of things. I think I covered that in the last video. But GitHub does have a branching scheme, but it also has what's called a pull request, which is a great tool. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe below if you want to watch more videos. And we'll see you guys next time. See you later.
See you guys.